Early in the morning on April 19, 1995, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City was attacked. Killing at least 168 people and injuring multitudes more, it is still the deadliest instance of domestic terrorism in U.S. history. 2 years later, in 1997, a national memorial was authorized by President Bill Clinton. In the planning stage, a few problems with the project became apparent. First and foremost was the issue of security. Frankly, it was not altogether an unpopular opinion to agree with the attackers' motives at the time. Timothy McVeigh, who had just been sentenced to death a month prior, believed that his actions were taken out of necessity and in defense against a tyrannical government. He specifically cited the controversial events at Ruby Ridge and Waco in his defense. It was with some irony and some public unrest that the attack resulted in the passing of the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. This further restricted standards for habeas corpus, which was a standard McVeigh and his compatriots described as tyrannical overreach even before the change. Some feared that this public unrest may result in additional attacks, perhaps against the memorial itself.
After the bombing of the Murrah Federal Building, the General Services Administration immediately sought to replace it. With the decision to rebuild came several design challenges. The task at hand, to create a strong, beautiful, and safe presence amongst the tragedy. One of the primary design challenges of this project was centered around safety. The new federal building needed to be able to withstand another attack. With safety at the center of this project, GSA's chief architect Ed Feiner insisted that openness was as important as safety. He urged that not all safe spaces needed to be concrete bunkers, and that great design could allow for a safe and open space. The site was another challenge. It was located just north of the Murrah Federal Building. Many people did not want to return to this location because it was so close to one of the nation's most gruesome crime scenes. Safety, openness, and honoring the tragedy were at the forefront of the design intent, but that didn't cover all of the bases. The new federal building also needed to represent the values of community. It needed to be a friendly and welcoming public space, and it needed to convey to the world that we intended to go on. This building would serve as a symbol of strength and unity. The next step, selecting an architect that would be up for the task.
Carol Ross Barney graduated from the University of Illinois in 1971 with a Bachelor of Architecture. Shortly after graduating, she took an opportunity to work in the United States Peace Corps. During her time in the Peace Corps, she worked in Costa Rica, helping to preserve their coral reef. After her time in the Peace Corps, she came back to Chicago with an invitation to meet with a group of fellow women architects. This group ended up finding Chicago Women in Architecture, an organization that became the leading advocacy group for women in the field. Carol was the first president of the group. Many described her as the one who liked to work with noble clients, the ones who didn't have a lot of money or high-profile jobs, but instead had a social cause. In 1981, she opened up her own practice. Shortly after opening, she received the Plim Traveling Fellowship from the University of Illinois Urbana campaign. Carol worked on the suburban Glendale Heights post office as one of her first major commissions. This project set the tone for her willingness to go outside of the lines and rethink architectural conventions. In 1991, she received the AIA Institute Honor Award for Architecture and Presidential Design Award from the National Endowment of the Arts. After this recognition, she worked on many Chicago public school projects. Then, in 1997, Carol would take on what would arguably be the most impactful opportunity she's been granted. She was chosen to be the lead designer for the Oklahoma City Federal Building. She was the first female architect to lead the design of such a commission. When speaking about the building, Carol stated, "The design challenge was to create a strong, beautiful presence." But how did she address this challenge?
Barney and her team decided to use materials to their advantage when designing the new building. They created a sleek, concrete structure that had the permanence they were looking for, but also invited the public in with its glass facade. To ensure the occupants' safety, the structure was reinforced with steel beams, and explosion-resistant glass was used. Their most ingenious solution was curving the shape of the building inward to create a large courtyard at the entrance. The courtyard gave an added level of security, so that anyone entering or leaving the building could be easily observed. It also allowed the building to embrace the adjacent park and street and to interact with pedestrians, Barney's careful response to the site and context of her design was met with critical acclaim.
The Oklahoma City Federal Building is a national symbol of strength and resilience. It replaces the Murrah Federal Building that was destroyed in 1995 by a truck bombing, resulting in 168 people losing their lives. Within 3 months after the attack, Congress appropriated $40 million for a new building. Along with that, the National Endowment Fund for Arts and the GSA quickly organized a 3-day planning workshop for strategies on revitalizing downtown Oklahoma City. Through these efforts, the city's downtown development has had a breathtaking increase in per capita income. Along with the new building, a memorial park was designed with the intention of providing a communal place for public gatherings. Placed in the park are 46 benches, symbolizing Oklahoma's entering of the Union as the 46th state. Overall, the Federal Building and Memorial Park has brought a renewal of faith, honor, and kindness to the city and has strengthened the city as a whole. Survivor Robert Rohde said it best in a poem he wrote. "The years have passed, our journey done. The road wound back where we'd begun. Where hope and courage would not fall, we plant our feet, survivors all."